It's 6 o'clock. Now, Fox 35 News at 6.
Strong feelings from both sides on the immigration debate.
And as we said, it sure is will heat up in Florida just as it did in Arizona. We want to talk about this more in depth tonight. So joining us is former police chief Dr. Richard Weinblatt, who has taught law enforcement in Central Florida, also former Orange County Sheriff Kevin Berry in our newsroom. Both of you, thank you for coming in and braving the storms out there. I want to start with former Sheriff Berry. Put yourself in your old job right now. How difficult is this going to be, if it goes through, to implement with your men and women?
I don't think it is a problem. In the sheriff's office, we always train that you should be colorblind. Lakota Indians say there's 5 colors: black, white, yellow, brown, and red. And if you think green, our uniform color, you won't have a problem. I think part of the problem is we got too many politically correct law enforcement leaders today that need to remember they swore an oath of office to the local government, and they're here as the first line of defense for local citizens.
All right, Richard, I want to ask you, does this put the burden, though, for checking immigration directly on law enforcement? Seems like it would be a lot of pressure.
Well, I think it becomes a political football. It really is a Washington problem, and it should be handled in Washington. But the real crux of the matter, Cal, is the problem is the perception. There's a perception in a population that has long been disenfranchised that now they can't trust the police. And I was a former border officer. I was in New Mexico as a deputy sheriff, and I would have to go in right away and say, look, I'm not immigration. If you're a witness, if you're a victim, please talk to me. Don't be afraid to talk to me. That's a separate matter. And that's the problem. They're the most vulnerable.
Sheriff Berry, you touched on this a little bit in your previous answer, but who is to say what is reasonable suspicion? Does it cause other types of problems for law enforcement potentially?
Law enforcement deals with reasonable suspicion and probable cause and consensual encounters all the time. So the bottom line is, and I agree with Richard on one thing, Washington has done a lousy job in the immigration problem, and now law enforcement in Arizona has been asked to fix it on a local level, and it's a continuing debate. But what is not debatable is the fact that there's 28,000 people dead along the Arizona, Texas, and Mexican border with the drug cartels. So we better wake up and figure out how to take care of business. And we also see some of that immigration movement into Florida and other states from Arizona now because that law is in effect.
Well, we will be continuing to debate this, no doubt, in the months to come. Sheriff Berry, we appreciate it. Richard Weinblatt, thank you very much. And obviously there's a political angle to this, and at 11 o'clock tonight, we will have Attorney General Bill McCollum on here to discuss his reasoning for that. So we hope you'll join us then. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, Fox 35 News at 10.
And joining us now to talk about how we would implement this bill if it were to become law, Dr. Richard Weinblatt, a former police chief, and State Representative Rich Workman. Gentlemen, thank you, both of you, for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
All right, so Rich, let's start with you. You've already talked about introducing a bill like the one McCollum pitched today. How do you make sure this does not become a long, drawn-out fight with the federal government like Arizona's about to deal with?
Well, quite frankly, I'm not worried about a long, drawn-out fight. I say bring it on. We have citizens here to protect. We have budgets that we have to make, and at about $3 billion a year or so that we're wasting on illegal immigrants, I think that a long, drawn-out fight is quite fine. But we are going to work hard to make sure our bill crosses all of its T's and dots all of its I's, and that it does what it's supposed to do, and that is fight the illegal immigration onslaught in this state.
All right, Richard, as a former police chief, what hurdles would you expect trying to enforce this law? Could this get expensive?
Well, it could get expensive, but the real expense comes in the people that we are supposed to be serving. The problem is, Amy, that there's a large disenfranchised population that already does not trust law enforcement. They come from other countries, whether it be Haiti, Mexico, etc., where law enforcement doesn't have good community relations with them. Now, and as a former officer or former deputy sheriff in New Mexico, I used to run into this all the time firsthand. I'd have to walk in and say, look, I'm not immigration. If you're a victim, if you're a witness, please talk to us. We want to help solve the crimes here. This is a very simplistic reaction. The problem should not be solved by law enforcement. The problem should be solved in Washington.
All right, so Richard, is this the first step in trying to solve the problem in Washington? We got to solve it here because from everything we've been hearing, Washington's not taking care of it.
Yeah, how long do we have to wait? I appreciate what the officer said, that D.C. should take care of this. We gave them that authority. We said take care of our borders, take care of our national defense. They've refused to do it. Trust me, if I had a choice between the Arizona-type immigration law here in Florida or building a really big wall, I would choose the wall. But the fact is they're not building it, they're not protecting our borders, and we have to do something about it. And as a lawmaker, that's my job. I pass laws that the citizens of the state desire, and the law enforcement's job is to enforce those laws.
But the problem is, it's going to make it harder to enforce those laws because people won't come forward to tell us the stuff that we can solve the problems and put the bad guys away. Because not all immigrants are bad people. There are good people and bad people in every group. And we want to take care of the bad people. But we can't get at them if the good people are too scared to come forward. They're already scared.
Richard, isn't it the job of law enforcement, though, if they suspect someone is here illegally, to ask them about their status? I mean, isn't that something they should be doing as a routine basis anyways?
Well, their primary responsibility is the investigation of violent crimes, to protect people. But if we don't have victims and witnesses that are willing to come forward, we can't do that. Okay, we can't operate in a vacuum. It's a nice, simplistic, almost a Dirty Harry, Clint Eastwood movie knee-jerk reaction. I understand everybody's frustration. I'm frustrated by it. But the answer is not on the backs of the hardworking men and women in law enforcement. The answer comes in Washington, and the electorate needs to force the folks in Washington to take action.
We can't wait for that. We can't wait for Washington to take action, Amy. We've waited and waited and waited. This state has to do it on its own. Our police are in danger of being sued every time they come in contact with an illegal alien. Whether they detain them or not, they are not being told, our police officers are not being told whether to detain them or not. And as a result, they're getting mixed signals, and we have some criminals walking free, others being detained. We have to just tell them, round them up, put them in prison, and we'll deport them when the time is right.
Right, and what do we tell the victims, the domestic violence, the men, the women, the children that are victimized?
Gentlemen, I hate to cut you off. Thank you so much. It's been a very interesting debate. We really appreciate both of your viewpoints. Rich Workman, Dr. Richard Weinblatt, thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you,
we
Amy.
appreciate
Thank
you.
you.